message. I said, don't call my phone back again. And so, especially as leaders in the church, take time. Take time to sit down. If you can take a week, take a week. If you can take a day, take a day. If you can take a month, if you so have the privilege to take out 2 months off every year, do that.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because there are a lot of preachers that you and I actually follow. Some of them take 4 months sabbaticals.
4 whole months.
2 months, 4 months, and it's a real thing, because if you're constantly on the go and stuff, you're not going to have the time to really pour into the other areas that we've been talking about. Speaking of which, I wanted to piggyback on your point about, leaders especially being able to pour out and have that way of just expressing themselves and breeze out, right? I would want to encourage persons, especially if you know you're on the road to burnout potentially, establish persons around you, even if it's 2 people, or if you're married, if your spouse, if you can line up your spouse being that way, or if you're a spouse of a leader, then line up yourself in the way where you are actively supporting them in helping them to pour out, in helping them to balance and all these things. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that I commandeer his phone out of, like, I don't believe in that, but at the same time, like, I'm going to be that mosquito in your ears that's saying, you need to breathe out, or you need to sleep, or you need to remember that, these other things need to get done. Because the reality is that the beautiful heart of a leader is that they want to make sure they're serving. They want to make sure that, as the question is, they're eager to serve.
Yep,
And so it's a beauty, but it can also, I don't want to call it a weakness, but it can also be a drawback specific. It's not managed properly, right, yeah. And so if you have persons supporting you in relation to that and stuff, where you can pour out and really talk like how you're really feeling about specific situations and stuff, and empty out and whatever, and I mean in addition to your prayers, as you were mentioning earlier, then that can also help to reduce burnout, or to get rid of the potential of burnout, because you're not going to implode. You're not going to run yourself into the ground and stuff, because you can release and breathe out,
Another point.
We have comments to read. Yeah.
Well, one more point before we jump into the comments.
Yeah.
Is that, I was saying it earlier, lack of succession planning definitely leads to burnout. If you're the only one
doing 5 things at church,
or believe that you alone can do 5 things or 10 things, because there's a 2. Because if you're the only one that's doing 20 things there,
or if you believe you are the one,
let me just stop on the first one first. If you're the only one, that means you're not training anybody. That means you're not opening it also means that you're possibly not opening yourself for the Lord to allow you to do other things, or to lead you into other things. You're not helping anyone. You're not helping anyone else to reach to the level where you are above.
Right.
You may not be doing it deliberately, but it may literally be keeping people below you, because you maybe feel like you alone can do it.
Yeah.
And the flip side is, if you believe especially that you're the only one that can do it, be careful about pride.
Yay. Ooh.
Be careful about you just believing like, you know what, I alone, it just stops right here. There's nobody else that can do this like me. Yeah. There's nobody else. No. Yeah. And it's 2 different, Yeah. One is on one side it may possibly be like, the reality is that there's nobody else that can do it, and like
the church
you.
Is kind of
and the church is relying on what you to do it. But it doesn't mean that you can't teach the person.
Right.
And then the pride aspect is that there are possibly persons there that you could teach or could do the same
but
thing.
You're stuck in yourself.
But you're stuck in yourself, and therefore it leads to burnout. And what happens with that is that when you are flipped over and on your bottom,
them have to replace the same way.
They will have to replace you. And then the bigger issue is that now when you are, let's not say you're gone, you're just sick, you can't be there for the next 2 months or so. Somebody else has to do it. And now the church or the organization now realizes that, wow, this is the only person that was doing this thing. There was no other person. Nobody else was taught. None of that. And that's wrong, guys.
And so interestingly, we're speaking from experience from the place of witnessing that tremendously, and we saw what it did to the church that we witnessed it at, and that church was hindered for a couple months straight because there was not much time spent to actually help others to come up in the line. You get me? And I'm happy also that you mentioned the whole matter of, pride or, not teaching others and things like that, because it makes me think about what we also learned the hard way in the corporate world, and also just generally as, also as business owners. Our reality is that if you get to a place where you are afraid to let go, if you get to a place where you are afraid to let go and you say, hey, well, I need to get this done and whatever, eventually your results will dwindle and the quality will dwindle, and so you will have to be replaced anyway. And our reality is that in the corporate world, you learn that the hard way, because you especially when jobs not about really, they will find somebody to replace you. You get me? Church is not necessarily like that. But I'm just saying, and then beyond that, too, even as a business owner, like for me personally, recently I took on a team within my business and stuff, and because I said, there's so much I know more I can do on my own. I had to learn that the hard way. I had to swallow my pride and whatever, because especially when you birth something, you want to nurture it and make sure it's done, whatever. Right, and you want to, and also because of past experiences where I trusted people with specific aspects and they ended up letting me down, you become very protective. But you see, in God's kingdom, you see, when God say, yo, you want something done or whatever, it's not about you, it's about really working together as a team and seeing how best that thing can be accomplished. So even if it's a thing where you can say, hey, well, I would have done this differently, the fact is the thing is getting done. And then also you can still play a role in helping to nurture the other person so that things can get done to a specific standard, right? So when you learn to let go, and when you learn that the world does not revolve around you, and all of that, that is when you actually swerve from burnout, and you literally dodge burnout and stuff, and Alright, so let's just go ahead and jump into the comments. So this person actually sent 2 separate comments. This is Aishika, pick up yourself, ma'am. She was really passionate here. So she gave actually 5 reasons, no 4. Okay. So the first one, some Christians be doing too much. Like seriously, involved in every ministry. No, find your lane and stay there. 2, poor leadership. Some leaders expect their members to always show up to do this or to do that, or they utilize the same set of people all the time. Rotation is key. We were saying this earlier, right? And taking a break sometimes, sabbatical, is essential to prevent burnout, as we said earlier too. 3, lack of passion. Not doing the why can easily cause, or not knowing the why, I'm guessing, can easily cause frustration, right? Some are merely just doing ministry, just because, probably carrying on family tradition. Wow. Yeah. Didn't think about that one, family tradition. And they haven't found their why as yet. And I'm, of course, meaning, your personal relationship and walk with Jesus Christ. And thus, burnout is inevitable. So, yes, those are some of reasons. And then also she goes into, also, number 4, boring church programs. I just said, oh, Lord, help. Some churches need to reform, revitalize, and come up with fresh, creative, exciting ways to do church, especially in our post-modern context. Some are really stuck in the 1800s. Jesus, be a creative, she said. Wow. Man, I feel like,
I just want to say something in regards to, she talking about, them doing, persons doing too much and being served. Ministries were created well, I fully believe that ministries were created for persons just to find their purpose. To help you find their purpose, as well as to serve people.
Right.
So to serve people and for people to find their purpose.
Right.
If you're in 10 ministries, across the board, and none of them line up to what you really want to do, you have to be careful about that. Because I feel like it's being a part. If you find you're just starting, you just want to get involved. You just want to be involved. But there comes a time when you're involved, but it's almost like you're niching down. You're realizing like what makes sense to you. What is it that God is calling you to? What is it that you really have a passion for? And then as you pretty much niche down and either cut down, you realize that, the Lord kind of just starts to determine your lane, per se.
So I have a question, and I'm sorry to cut you, but this might require a bit more transparency on both of our parts, right? Because, and from both of our parts, because I know that we are very multi-passionate, right? And there are a lot of things we can do. And I mean, it's always said that just because you can do it, don't mean you should do it. But at the same time, I want you to speak from your perspective in terms of your own journey to just being a part of maybe 3 or 4 ministries versus the 11 ministries you were a part of at one point. And then from my perspective, I think I want to talk about, the fact that there are just a lot of things I've learned over the years, and I have committed all of these things to God, and so I literally can jump into pretty much any ministry. But how did I get to the place of saying, yo, this is what I'm doing, and stuff like that? So I'd love if you could talk.
So yeah, I've pretty much been a part of. Growing up, I was a part of a lot of ministries because I was just very passionate for God. I just wanted to do everything. I just wanted to be a part of everything, and it was just like anything that led to just serving God and serving people. That was me, and I didn't know it was really just that in itself. I didn't know that was the main thing. It's honestly since recently I was like, yo, I love serving God and I love serving people. Right. And so I will do the different things that align to that. But before, I'm young, I'm... I have no chica child or great responsibility. I say great, it's like, yeah, I don't have much responsibility than the chores at my home and my schoolwork. So I just be a part of a lot. As I grew older, I realized that as my responsibilities grew, I would now have to step back or line up what I can, schedule things properly, organize things properly, delegate things properly. Because if I was going to keep up all of these ministries, I would have to do it in a way, or these activities, I would have to do it in a way that would still allow me to, let me not say have a life, I don't want to put it like that, but will still allow me to breathe, to be able to do other things, to be able to rest, to be able to take time away from myself. I realized a part of that would have had to be cutting off a few ministries or cutting off a few things I'm a part of. And some of them, it wasn't like I was any like big leader or anything a part of it. I was just really a part of it because I wanted to help, I wanted to serve and what have you. And so after a time, I had to like, all right, I have to cut this down. When I got married, I had to start cutting things down because I realized I would need time for my wife. I would need time to get to know her and understand her. I would need time to understand this whole marriage thing and how it works and what works for us versus what works for other people and what our patterns would become. Yeah. And so therefore, that's literally what it is. I feel like as time goes by, if you're somebody who is consistently in ministry, and consistently in possibly many ministries, as time goes by, you're gonna have to possibly cut off or hand over to somebody else because life is like that. And then after a while, I realized too that it took up the time that I would need to really tap into God. And that was one of the biggest part for me that I had to be like, no, Brian, you have to really look into. Are you really, you're giving your time all these things, yes, for God, but are you really, you're giving yourself to God? Are you really giving yourself to His presence, to His will, to what He wants to do, where He wants to go, what He wants to line up in your life? Are you doing that? And I had to make sure that I started to do that, because the bigger thing for me is not just to help and serve, but to make sure that whatever I'm doing gives God glory. And whatever I'm doing is what He wants and not just what I feel like He should want. Yep.
Yeah. And well, pretty much, let me use this point to actually like segue between both of our stories. So, and I've said this to you before, and I had to say this to myself. We have to remember too that we don't stay young forever, right? And I mean, as much as we're talking about responsibilities and all those things, we also need to talk about our bodies as well. So things that you could do as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, or whatever, you could be at church all day, boom flick and all them sitting there, all these things, just as a part of ministry, maybe in a dance ministry or mime or something like that. By the time you get to like 27, you're tired more. You get tired. You know what I mean? And then
that's very young.
True, okay, fine. By the time you get to 30, 35 or whatever, you're tired. You gotta slow down. You get me? But at the same time, there's some persons who want to keep up. There's some persons who want to keep going, with all of those activities they used to do. And so it's in that pursuit, and it's in trying to keep up with the Joneses, which is yourself, apparently. That's when you burn out, and you don't need to be doing that to yourself. Like, figure out what you need to be doing in that season of your life, and figure out what your body can keep up with, and I mean, still try and remain healthy and eat well and all these things. Just push forward with that. So saying that to say, that's one of the things that did really reach me in relation to my journey, because just to list a few of the things that I do or can do, I mean, graphic design, anything with public relations, writing, video editing, I lived a lot, social media management, website design, like, it's a lot, and those things can be used in the church. Then I also sing. I used to dance. You get me? So like, I used to write script for drama. I used to plan events for church. I know.
That list is going on.
Right.
The list continues.
You get me? And by no means is this bragging, but our reality is that it's just because I wanted to do a lot for God. I wanted to make sure that as I learned something, I was able to give it back to God, because at the end of the day, I am His vessel, and if I can use what I have learned to impact other people's lives so that they can be shown the way to God or whatever, that's my mandate, that I want to make an impact. But then may I get old? And I mean, also in getting married, and also just going through specific things within life and stuff like that, I had to decide that if I'm pursuing things, all of them should link, as you had said earlier. All of them should link, and make sure that there's a specific goal being reached and stuff. And fine, if I do like a one-off thing from one of the previous things I can also do and whatever, then fine, But as it relates to consistently pursuing something, I had to make the decision that these are the things I'm focusing on. These are the things I'm gonna nurture and make sure that I get even better at, so that I can represent God as a high standard and stuff like that. So with that said, I mean, guys, this turned into a much longer episode than expected. So with that said, go on.
I just wanted to end with, because I wanted to say it's not even so much about age or what have you.
Right.
Be aligned with God.
Right.
Because if God, and be real with yourself. If God gives you the grace to be doing 10 ministries at one time, and you're married and you have children and you can do all 10. If God gives you that grace properly, if God gives you that grace, go for it.
Do your thing.
Do your thing. And I said go for it because even that it doesn't mean that you're the only one that's doing the thing. Maybe you delegate properly, you play a role in a thing. Yeah. So it may not be you are the leader and organizer, but you may be delegate some of the stuff and you're just a part of a thing.
Right.
So if God gives you that grace, cool. Big up yourself. But at the same time, just know what you need to align yourself with. Just know what the Lord is saying to you. And most of all, take time to go in the presence of God. Take time to take a break, sit down, slow down, go on a beach, read a book. If that's your thing, take some time to just laugh, go out with friends, something that adds to the other aspect of your life, you know, that can replenish you and rejuvenate you to jump right back in to doing ministry and serving for the Lord and just loving on people. Because a lot of that can take a lot out of you. Can drain a lot out of you.
Whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert.
Whether or not you are any of the two, it can take a lot out of you. And so you need to have time when you spend time with yourself, spend time with your family, spend time with your spouse. If you're singles, just spend time with, with Jesus. And date yourself, whatever you, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. And then on the flip side, sorry to cut you. On the flip side, churches, institutions, leaders, give grace and dive into succession planning so that we can nurture our kingdom people better, and so that people can feel freer to live a more whole life.
That's right.
Yeah. So, anything else? You good?
Nope, that's it. That's it. As usual, like, share, subscribe.
Guys.
Comment down below. We don't know it all.
If
you haven't already, we don't know it all. We want to hear your thoughts. What are the causes that you think lead to burnout, especially in church and in ministry? Is there anything that we didn't highlight that we should? Is there anything that you want to share with us that, maybe a story? You never know, you might see it. But comment down below. Until next time, this is Purpose Audacity, signing off.
Later, guys.